What's going on, guys? It's Paul here, and this is the Tascam Portacapture X8, which I just received. I pre-ordered it almost 2 months ago, so I'm excited to finally have it in, as well as the optional Bluetooth adapter. And I figured I would do a quick video and just take you guys along as I open this thing up. I'll do a quick overview and also some initial sound testing, and then in about a month or two after I've had time to really put this thing through its paces and use it in the real world, I'll come back and do my full review then. So with that said, let's go ahead and open this thing up. Okay, so this is everything that came in the box. Really simple. We have some paperwork. We have the two XY microphones. It did come with 4 AA batteries, which was nice, although I had my Energizer batteries ready to go. And then, of course, we have the Tascam Portacapture X8. And this little tiny thing is the optional Bluetooth module. Just going over the body of the recorder, you can see the screen here. We have a home button, which also looks to be a stop button. Pause and play here. We have this nice dial, a record button, and one of my favorites, which is the marker button. Down here we have a peak light and a record light. Moving around to this side, you can see 3 and 4 of the XLR inputs. These are both combo jacks, so you can use 1/4" inputs if you want to. We have an external in 3.5 millimeter and a line out 3.5 millimeter, as well as a headphone out and an independent volume control for the headphone. Moving around to the top, this is the input for the 2 X and Y microphones. I'm really interested to find out, because these X and Y microphones use this little 3.5 millimeter jack, if I can just plug a standard 3.5 millimeter cable into these from another microphone. Moving around to this side, we have channels 5 and 6 XLR combination jacks, the power slide on as well as hold, the USB-C port, and the SD card slot, which this is a micro SD only, and I'm a little bit disappointed to see that. I would have preferred a slot for a full-size SD card. On the bottom, we have a hot shoe mount, so if you have an on-camera style microphone, you can attach it to the recorder right there. There's a 1/4" mount, and then this is the battery cover, where it takes 4 AA batteries. Initial impressions are that thanks to the curved area around the back here, it does feel pretty nice in the hand if you're planning to hand hold it. A little bit nicer than what I remember the H4n being. And build quality wise, it feels pretty good. It does have a slight plasticky feel, but overall it's pretty solid, and I would say that I'm happy with that. What I'm a little disappointed in is the build quality of the X and Y microphones. These things are super light and they just feel pretty cheap. I feel like my 1-year-old has toys that are built better than what these are. So hopefully they'll hold up, and I honestly may not keep these mounted on the Tascam at all times anyway, but just be aware that these are not the best build quality that I've ever seen. It's thinking, and now, okay, pretty responsive screen, not too bad. The options we have here are browse, ASMR, voice, music, manual, field, podcast, tuner, metronome, and SD card reader. Okay, I've been playing with this for a few minutes now, and there are some interesting things here. You'll notice that we're getting levels now, and that's from the 2 attached microphones. And one thing I really like is that you actually get a numeric dB readout down here at the bottom, instead of just having to go by the sliding bars here. And if I switch over to this input tab, now we have a gain for each channel. And one thing I'm noticing here that I would like to see changed maybe in a future firmware update is that, in my opinion, any digital slider, you should be able to double tap it to revert it to default settings, and that's not the case here. If I double tap it, it doesn't do anything. So you have to kind of slide it around to get it to whatever gain setting you want. And right here, I can tap these to disable the recording of the tracks that I'm not using. And you see the little microphone icon above that. If I click on that, that brings up all of these settings for that particular track. I'll switch over here to the mixer tab, and another thing that I like is that on that input tab we could change the gain for each individual track, and then on the mixer tab you can control the level of what's going to the mix. So you kind of have those two independent controls. I guess it's not technically independent, but you have two separate controls there that makes it a lot more like a physical mixer board. Across this row here we have pan control, so you can select if you want that particular track to record more in the left or right channel. And up here on the top for master, you can click that and we have a master gain control as well as an option to switch from stereo to mono for that mix track. One other thing to note here is that anytime you select a slider, you can also control it with this wheel at the bottom if you want fine-tune control. Now I'll go back to the launcher screen, and I'm not going to go into very much detail for the rest of these, but just to give you an initial view at the other options. If I click on ASMR, it looks like this one's just a very basic readout that gives you an easy way to see your left and right channels. I'm guessing that's, yeah, gain control there. So the next one here is voice, which looks very similar to the ASMR screen. The only real difference I see is your level display here appears to be the left and right mixed as opposed to showing you independently left and right. Now going back to the launcher, the next one is music. I'm sure there's a lot we could get into with this one. I won't bother with that for this video, but you see what the screen looks like initially. We did manual already. The other one here is field. And this one also looks pretty basic, just gives you quick access to functions that you would use more frequently in field recording. Next we have podcast. So this one also just looks like a little bit more simplified version of the manual screen. Not a lot different here. The other options we have are tuner, if you need to tune, and this one is the metronome. Okay, out of curiosity here, I just connected my headphones because I wanted to make sure that it does give you an audible metronome, and hopefully you can hear that, but it does. Now I'll go down here to general settings, and here we have record settings, I/O, camera settings, other, system, and power/display. So going into record, that's where we can change our file format. You can record in MP3 if you want to. Sample, we could boost that all the way up to 192 kilohertz, and why not? And then for bit depth, that's where we can change to the wonderful 32-bit float. Here is auto record, so it looks like you can set it to, if it detects a signal at a certain dB, it will start recording automatically. You can change those parameters. Dual record, I really like that. Not really as necessary if you're recording 32-bit float, but still nice to have that option. And pre-record, that is another good thing to have. Going back to the I/O settings, we can turn on phantom power, we can trim the mic, speaker, we can turn that on. I'm going to leave it off for now, but that's where you can turn it on. A couple of other options here, I won't go into detail with those. We can go into camera settings. We have, okay, this is where you have the level control for the line out on the side there. We also have auto tone, not auto tune, auto tone. I honestly don't even know what that is. I'll have to look into that for later. Other settings, peak mark, auto mark, SD card reader, Bluetooth. I need to put the module in and test that out. You can also go to the system, information, file naming, power and display. There's power save mode, backlight, brightness indicators, contrast, which looks like it controls the brightness more so than the contrast. So that's enough of the recorder for right now. Let's go ahead and plug in the Bluetooth adapter, and then we'll see what the app has to offer. So that's kind of interesting. The Bluetooth adapter doesn't really snap in, it just slides in, and it doesn't appear to be held in that well, and it kind of sticks out the bottom there a little bit. So If I leave that in, I'll probably end up putting a little piece of gaff tape or something over that just to make sure it stays in. Okay, Tascam does have the app called Portacapture Control available. Okay, it connected pretty quickly, and the screen here looks identical to the screen on the Tascam itself. Okay, we can see it changing on the Tascam as I change things here. Similar to other field recorders you may have used in the past, you have to press the record button once to arm it and begin displaying your levels, and then you have to press it once again to actually begin recording. Okay, now next I'll go to browse because I'm interested in that. I can see all the recordings on my SD card. I'll select one. We have select, play, file information, delete. Now I want to go back up here to play because I'm interested if I play this. Okay, so that's interesting. I just confirmed that you can select a file and you can press play on the app, but it only plays back through the Tascam, through the headphone port, or I assume if you have the speaker turned on, the built-in speaker, you could play it back through that as well. But I don't see any method of playing back a file on the phone itself or any other way to download an audio file to the phone to play it back later. Okay, so I am now recording on the Tascam, so you are hearing this through the built-in microphones of the Tascam. And quickly, I'll just tell you about my thoughts on the app, and what I'll say is that I'm actually really impressed. Typically, the first version of an app like this is pretty clunky and it's missing some features, and otherwise, I mean, it seems like they basically just took all the functionality and menus of the recorder itself and just threw it in an app. And I actually like that because it means that you have basically all the same control in the app that you have in the device itself. The only thing that I think is missing is that ability to download or play back audio files on the app instead of just through the device. Okay, so with that overview out of the way, I want to do a couple of just really quick audio tests. And the first one that I'm going to do is recording an XLR condenser microphone into the Tascam X8. And for that, I'm going to be using the Audio-Technica AT4053B. That'll be a really basic test. And then the next test will be using the Rode Pod mic, which is a dynamic microphone, and that will just allow me to test the preamps a little bit more. And finally, what I want to do is a little comparison test of the Tascam X8 compared to the Zoom H1N, and that's going to be a comparison of the attached microphones on the X8 and the built-in XY microphones on the Zoom H1N. This is an audio test with the Audio-Technica AT4053B. This is a condenser microphone which requires 48-volt phantom power. I'm recording into the Tascam X8 and my track gain is set to 30 dB. In post, I'll normalize this track to -23 LUFS, but no other post-processing will be done. Now here's some silence. This is an audio test with a dynamic microphone. I'm using the Rode Pod mic recorded into the Tascam X8. My track gain is set to 45 dB, and in post, I will normalize this track to -23 LUFS, but no other post-processing will be done. Now here's some silence. You are currently listening to this field recorder, and this is an indoor dialogue test between these two field recorders, the Tascam X8 and the Zoom H1N, and their included XY microphones. You are currently listening to this field recorder, and this is an indoor dialogue test between these two field recorders, the Tascam X8 and the Zoom H1N, and their included XY microphones. This is just a test to answer my question from earlier, and the answer is yes. It is possible to remove the X and Y microphone from the top of the recorder and instead plug in a microphone that uses a 1/8 inch or 3.5 millimeter jack. So that's going to be my overview of this recorder, but if you have any questions about it, leave them in the comment section below and I'll try to get you an answer. If I get enough questions, then maybe I'll just do a full frequently asked questions video. And otherwise, you can stay tuned for about another month or two, and I'll have a full review on this recorder once I've had a chance to really put it through its paces. And if you received any benefit in this video, you can hit the like button. It really helps out the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.